Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the final webinar for 2024. Thank you for joining us. My name is Amina. I am your co-host today. I'm the Customer Success Team Lead here at aXcelerate, and this is Jack.
Howdy all, Product Manager for the SMS. Hoping to run you through a few things today.
Cool. Before we get into it, we're just going to go through a little bit of housekeeping for you. Just so you know, recording is in progress of this webinar, so you will receive a copy of the recording after the session is completed. We do have some people on Q&As on the Zoom chat at the moment as well, so feel free to pop questions in there along the way. What can be answered during chat will be answered during chat, but there will be time for Q&A at the end with Jack, so we will put some of those towards the end, and some may need to be turned into help and support tickets as well. So feel free to get social, chat along in there. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. So I suppose we'll get started. So here's a bit of the agenda for today. Obviously, what we sent through to you guys as part of the webinar session. Really, the goal today is to get everyone excited. If you haven't had this feature turned on, or maybe if you have already had it enabled, which a good amount of people have, just take you through a few of the reasonings why we've made the changes and some tips and tricks, really. So now we'll have a look at a few of the features that are available for sessions. So first, we should probably start with what is workshop sessions.
Probably a good place.
So workshop sessions is a rather large overhaul we've done to how we book our specific instances of training for workshops. So this is at a sort of more granular level than perhaps some of you are willing to or have previously looked at. So this is for what we previously had. Complex states are now known as sessions, essentially. So there was a few other changes we want to make alongside that, but really what we really want to do was add a little bit more control for everyone when you're booking these sessions, whether that be for your trainers, where it's going to be, all that sort of thing, and have that reflect everywhere in the system a little bit more accurately.
Yeah.
So why are we making the change? Ultimately, that was primarily from feedback from customers. Really, people did want to have a little bit more control over how they booked things, how it appeared for their trainers, how it then potentially appeared for their learners as well. And previously just the complex states and that sort of a system wasn't really up to the challenge of having all that information accurately affected in calendars. So the real benefit for sessions, a lot of the simpler booking systems for workshops, if you're just booking, one workshop with one instance of training, it's probably going to be not much of a change for you. It's going to be pretty straightforward. Not a lot's going to change in terms of what you'll actually see. But if you're running a bit more of a complex booking system, whether that's multiple sessions per workshop, sessions that are in different areas in different parts of the day, different equipment, different trainers, all that sort of thing, sessions will give you a little bit more of that control over what you actually need for each of those. So that's obviously a little bit of the why and what we're doing to affect that change.
I guess it falls back to the innovation part of aXcelerate too.
Absolutely is. And for any of those who've sort of come along or maybe following some of our marketing we've had recently, or even if you came to aXcelerate Day, you'll have seen, obviously there's a push to improve some of our really core system areas. So workshops obviously core to what everyone's doing day to day. It's one of the most used parts of aXcelerate.
Probably the most heavily used part, I reckon.
Very much is very close to. And so making that a bit more granular in terms of your control, making it a bit nicer to use, and probably stopping some of the workarounds that people were having to use previously is a big one, obviously.
Awesome.
So that's a bit of the benefits at a high level. But then let's look at what's changed. So obviously as part of this, there's quite a few things. We talk about sessions. Obviously there's a new sessions tab that you'll see in workshops. But we've changed a few things on the back end to deliver some of that value. So one of the big ones, like I touched on before, simple versus complex bookings. Previously, that was your options when you were booking in, either it would be a date range or complex. The idea of complex is, again, that's now gone. We've moved all of that to sessions. And one of the big things now is even if you had a simple session previously, that is now going to have a booking behind it as well.
With a session behind it,
absolutely going to be well represented in your calendar for trainers, learners, everyone to do with it. The other one is obviously we've moved away from what we called workshop locations. Previously, we had this idea of workshop locations and delivery locations. One was used for accredited, for delivery, and that obviously has a bit more information tied to it, a proper street address. It's not just a text field, that sort of thing. But now we're going to use delivery locations for everything. And the whole idea there is previously we might not have had all the information we needed to really tell people where to go, what's happening, and really effectively show that information to trainers and learners. So they might have a rough address that you've maybe typed in, could be spelling mistakes, could be all sorts of things. And the other one that ties into that is then obviously if we have these nice location fields which are part of delivery locations, we can also then affect time zones and other bits and pieces. So again, If you're a bit more of a simpler operation, I say that in inverted commas, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
If you're always running things out of head office, it's always the one location.
Yeah,
It's only
single day.
bookings. Probably a lot of the session stuff won't change a lot of how you interact with the system day to day. But for those who are potentially multi-state, have trainers traveling between states, have multi-day bookings, have different instances of training in different areas on different days, all that sort of thing, the more complex it gets, the more value you should be able to get out of sessions.
Sure. Awesome.
So it really lets you get in there, and we encourage everyone, if you have it already, jump onto the sessions tab and have a look around, especially while we're talking to it today. But also, if it's coming soon, and there will be a few of you who hopefully have signed up today with the rollout coming to you soon, we should have everyone on by the end of the year. But we also have our staging server as well. So jump on there, have a look at it, and see what it looks like for you.
100%. I think that's great advice, is just jumping in staging, see what looks different. That new tab will appear now for them.
Absolutely will.
And I guess we're going to go into a bit of detail on what that new tab can do for them, I guess.
Certainly will. So as we sort of touched on, the advantages of delivery locations. So obviously with a delivery location, for those who are using accredited and non-accredited, you'll be used to the difference between workshop locations and delivery locations, because you'll be using both. Delivery locations obviously required for your event reporting, all that sort of thing. We've got to capture all that data. But for those who are probably just using workshop locations previously, it might seem like a little bit more information to you, but the real benefit is, again, having that information, not just a string of text in a single field. We can actually do a lot of things for you. So again, capturing these as a delivery location means we can show where the workshop is accurately to learners. We can show where trainers need to be. If it's, in different states or other bits and pieces, when they look at their calendar, especially if they've got to fly down the next couple of days, they'll see what it is in reference to other things. You can check clashes, all that sort of thing. And that was sort of hindered a little bit previously with just that workshop locations field being a bit simple.
Okay, cool.
So that's really one of the biggest things. Obviously, the other part of that is when we didn't have that accurate information, we'd have to do a bunch of assumptions. So that was a bit of a risk in terms of putting stuff in calendars, if you're booking clashes, if you're looking at booking your trainers on who's available. If we didn't have that information, we just couldn't tell you where it is or what it should be. But obviously, one of the key things here also too, so for those who are running a bit more of a advanced single short course operation, one of the things we've added as part of this, and you might question how you do this, so this is a question we had a couple of times since the rollout, is I'm doing the training at 1 Smith Street, but I actually need to report on it for Evetmus at head office. And how do we do that in the system? So that's been a key question so far. So what we actually have as part of this new field, and I'll actually highlight it here for us, is that reporting delivery locational, which is optional. So for any delivery location that we're creating, we can actually say, for everywhere in the system, I want to display it as this, so the trainer knows where to go, the learner knows where to go. But when you come to do your Evetmus reporting at the end of the year, or any other reporting in there, it'll just say, it'll report back to head office and say, that's where to bill it to, that's where to put it in. So
that goes into the part where you're doing the coordination from head office, so you're reporting through to head office in those sort of scenarios.
Absolutely. So definitely a key one for especially our short course first aid, or any of those who are doing in-house and then on site, something like that. So definitely a key one to have a look at if you haven't already.
Cool.
Jumping through. So how has it changed how items are displayed in the calendar view? So this is another key one, and one we were really focusing on when creating this feature. So now that there is an instance and a booking for a session for everything that gets put in as part of an instance of training, that can include a lot of, for people who have, you're booking Monday to Friday, suddenly you've got 5 different bookings. So previously you were used to maybe seeing that combined view of
the one long line,
similar to Google Calendar, other bits and pieces. What we have is now we've introduced some filters into your calendar. So now you can choose how you view those sessions, either as individuals or as a nice combined.
So I could pick which one I want.
So if you were used to that old view and don't need the change, obviously you can put that in. If you want to look at the individual instances of training, again, you can swap between them. So you might then also adjust in your sessions, and Thursday, Bob Jones or Bob Jenkins in our example here, they're off sick, and we've swapped them out for Avery, or the other way around. And then you just want to view in your calendar that individual session. So you can turn off that combined view and then have a look. And of course, then that would also be the same for trainers. They'll be able to see either the combined view, or they can look at their individual sessions. So
the customers will have the flexibility to pick which one they have.
Absolutely. Awesome. It's one of those ones you can swap back and forward and see what you want to see. The other big benefit is obviously all of this more modular control here. So in our example, we've got here a single session. So this is on a single day, we've got a booking, and then we've got a morning session with one trainer and an afternoon session with another, just as an example of what you might want to be able to handle with sessions. So previously you might have had to have one session, have them both on there, they're not really sure if they're on the morning or afternoon. You've got to send additional communications to them.
Yeah.
This is just having that more modular control on, okay, I can have 2 sessions. It's a morning and an afternoon.
Yeah.
Allocate the right trainers to that. If they need additional equipment, you can book it to the afternoon. Say you needed the defib or something like that in the afternoon. You can book that onto that session and say, well, Bob's coming along. He knows he has to bring the defib along.
Awesome.
And you also know that you potentially don't have any clashes with anything else you've booked that day.
So a lot more granular control.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, the big change here is complex states previously filled quite a bit of this gap, but there was quite a few of these workarounds that had to happen to sort of try and manage these some of the things. So this is a more holistic change.
Yeah.
And again, we keep saying simple, but if you're a bit more of a straightforward implementation, probably some of this is not super essential. It shouldn't add any extra work, really. But if you have that more complex narrative that you have to book in and try and sort out, it really gives you that control. And it can be all updated, obviously, on the fly, too.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, if a trainer calls in sick or something for the next day, we can obviously bring in a new trainer and assessor for that specific day or session.
Yeah, absolutely. So it just makes sure that you can get really what we're trying to solve in a lot of these places is give you the control to schedule it correctly and then have it appear for everyone in the correct way.
Nice.
So really trying to add that value there. Having a look through. So obviously we've added in sessions and it gives you that extra layer of control. But as we said previously, sessions are sort of a reskinned with a few extra layers of control, complex states. So really anywhere that a complex state previously was in the system, you'll just now see sessions.
Okay.
Obviously, we've now allowed a little bit more control. Previously, a lot of these fields were against those complex states, but you just didn't have the ability to interact with them.
Okay.
So hopefully, in terms of sessions, obviously, this is a instance of training.
Yes.
So if we're one-to-one in terms of the workshop and you have one instance, nice and simple.
Yeah.
If you've got a lot of instances of training, then obviously then you can just control it, but it doesn't feed necessarily push around your primary workshop allocation. You might want to have a primary trainer on that, have other trainers working on different pieces. So you can really have a mix of who controls the main workshop, who's guiding that, who's running that, and then also the individual instances you can have if they're sick, if they're away, you know, Sally Jones might still be the primary trainer, but, you know, Tim Stevens comes in and he handles it for, you know, while they're away or while they're on leave or anything like that. And then in reporting, you can still look at, you know, this is still Sally's workshop, but also Tim did some sessions on it. So that's great. Yeah. Makes it nice and simple. The other thing that's important is, it's that separation of this is just controlling and looking at the information for instances. So it's just looking at, you know, having the right information in the right places, but we still have that top level control when we do that reporting, when we do our eventness, when we do everything else.
Yeah.
To make sure everything's correct,
but
then everything appears correctly as well.
Awesome. So when you say reporting, we mean eventness reporting, but also reporting within the aXcelerate system as well. So you get a lot more detail around the workshops, equipment, things like that. And
that's the primary purpose of all of this is just to make everything more accurate. And it might seem like there's a little bit more work in terms of managing other bits and pieces. It doesn't necessarily have to be. It just allows you that control. And if you're currently running the system in the same way you've always run it, sessions might get turned on and you just continue as business as usual. But if you do need these extra layers of control, it means you can jump in here, adjust things, add extra descriptions to individual sessions, have that appear in calendars, send notes, all that sort of thing, which definitely allows you to almost your imagination is what will limit you with sessions. So we've allowed a lot more of that control and it just allows you to be more accurate, which is hopefully the goal.
Yeah, 100%.
The other thing we'll say is obviously we've talked about quite a lot today in terms of sessions. Definitely recommend if you haven't got this switched on, jumping onto staging. This has all been converted over. And you just need to log in with your normal login, and then you should be able to have access to the Sessions tab if you don't already. The other portion of this is obviously when moving to these new things, we're having to do a bit of conversion. So we'll be converting over your workshop locations to delivery locations. We'll be converting over, you know, all of your bookings to the newer style of bookings. So we definitely recommend if you haven't had this already, jumping in there and making sure everything looks correct. Because we're having to do some conversion. We know your data, but you know it better than we do.
100%.
So there's definitely some cases in there where we might need to make some adjustments. It's obviously better before it goes live.
100% agree.
So jump in and take a look, and we should be able to help you out, hopefully, if you can. So reach out to support, reach out to us.
Make it through a technical support ticket for those instances where you things you're not really sure if that's how it's going to look in production, or you've got some questions around those in particular. We've got some questions coming through on the chat that we'll address at the end around, I think, locations as well. So we can talk about that at the end too. But I think, taking control of the data Having worked in an RTO, I know that RTOs do things really differently to each other.
Absolutely.
So we can make some assumptions and stuff, but obviously, like Jack said, you know your data better than everyone.
Absolutely.
So if you have a look, see what you think. And yeah, there's a couple of clusters still to go in December. So
that's it. So hopefully you've seen some communication. If you haven't already had sessions turned on, you should be receiving some communications from our marketing guys alongside ourselves. That means the next two scheduled dates are the 2nd of December, and we've got another session for them on the 9th. So if you haven't received any communication, definitely reach out to support already.
Yes.
Get in touch with us. Obviously, we've got help articles. The support guys are all skilled up and ready to help you look through your data, solve any issues. Obviously, then, if you are looking at your data and think there might be problems or things we can help you with, just jump in and ask the question. And there's a lot of things that we've, again, helped a lot of people through this process. We've been rolling this out slowly over about the course of a year, taking on a lot of customer feedback, making adjustments, making sure it's going to work the best way possible for you guys. Obviously, this, as we said at the start, this is really core to how workshops function in your day-to-day.
100%.
So as much as we're looking to add functionality, there is some adjustment there is some conversions.
Yeah.
There might be a little bit of pain initially and some additional work that we might have to do to help you get it up and running to get the most value out of it. But the whole goal is, if you put in that effort, at least initially, you should get a lot more value out of your calendar, your templates, how your trainers see the system.
Data reporting.
All
that sort of stuff. I think, Jack, also sessions is the first iteration of a broader project, right?
Absolutely. So what we're looking at is just refreshing some of these areas that are core, and then spending some time listening to customers, working out what's going to work best. And to do anything to do with, obviously, as we said earlier, workshops is extremely core to how people use the system. So to do that workshop refresh more holistically, so looking at, how we search for workshops, how they get adjusted, how we interact with them, how they interact with classes, we just had to make sure the data was right. So making sure that's all at the core of the workshop correct, to then work on building
on top of it, basically.
How it adjusts and how it works with every other part of the system.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think we've sped through that.
We absolutely have. And that is a little bit on purpose, because we figure we might have a few questions today. And there's also some questions that we wanted to cover today that have been asked as part of this process. So as I said, we've been working with a lot of customers over the last 6 to 9 months. There's a lot of things that have come through, and there's just some areas that we want to just point out that you might want to check and look at as part of any conversion.
100%.
So we'll put it on the slide. But the first one, though, I just wanted a couple of canned questions. So these are ones that we've looked at with support over the last 6 to 12 months. So absolutely. Again, one of the ones we kind of covered before, but we definitely recommend you looking at in future is if you do have that reporting location, so you always want to push to your event miss at a certain location, we absolutely have a feature for that. And that's just something that we can either help you set up if that's something you use all the time. That's the sort of thing that if it's already set up, again, we're doing this data conversion for you. If we've seen that and it can recognize that that's sort of how you're using the system, we can potentially have already set that up for you. But that reporting to location is absolutely key for those customers that do a lot of this on-site training, but do as part of their reporting need to say, hey, it's back at head office. That's where we're reporting from. One of the other ones that we looked at quite a bit was how the sessions do interact with the workshop. And again, we sort of think of it about the workshop is what this reporting container of all these training sessions. It could be 1, it could be 10, it could be 20, depends on how people are running their RTOs or, again, their non-accredited training. And these sessions are, again, about this modular control, but they don't necessarily feed back to that workshop. The workshop, you might want to report on a very specific way. You might want to have a primary trainer, you might want to have primary assessors, but you might then want to adjust that on the day-to-day in terms of who's actually there, who's actually able to do the training, what equipment was available, all that sort of thing. So a workshop can inform a session, but a session doesn't necessarily push that information back up, which is good because you might not always want it to. You certainly want to be able to more conscientiously change those primary workshop fields.
Awesome.
Now, jumping into some of the questions we've got today. So we've got someone's asked, they've got a lot of pre-saved locations. Now they don't have the original locations field. Where have these all gone? So what we've actually gone and done as we've converted over your data, we've obviously had to look at how most people are using the system and other bits and pieces and set some parameters around what's converted. Now, one of the parameters we've tried to look at is if you had a workshop assigned or a venue, we'll convert that over to a delivery location. Now, if that hasn't actually been assigned to or connected to a workshop for there's a period of time, I believe it's up to 6 months. We will still create that, but it'll be created as an inactive location. So simply a different tab when you go into your delivery locations, you can see you're active by default. There's the inactives in there.
The tab there, yeah.
If those are ones that you use all the time, absolutely, it's simple. You can just edit those and reactivate them.
Yep.
And especially too, we'd probably see that in a lot of circumstances where people are potentially, again, doing that reporting as head office, but going out and actually doing the work on the location. Yeah. So that's, again, probably one of those primary ones where we can even potentially help you reactivate those if there is a lot of pre-saved locations. But essentially what we did have to do is go through and anything that has been used as a location against a workshop for reporting, for your own reporting and data purposes, that does still need to be created in the system as a delivery location and still linked to those old workshops.
Cool.
But the idea was if you haven't used them in a period of time, you probably just don't want to see them in your list as you go allocate those out.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. So the next one we had was, can we add Zoom sessions or Teams sessions? So give the students trainers the link.
That should still be available. So what we actually have is just at a base level, if you're not setting up online learning or other bits and pieces, there is an individual description field against each session. So that was previously able to be added to a complex state, but that will still now come through and is against the session and will appear in the calendar.
Cool.
Should do.
Awesome. Are there any changes to the API as a result of these workshop changes?
Good question. So when going through this, and again, it's been probably around a year now of development on this, what we've done is tried to relink anything that would have then referenced, whether that's in templates, the API, anything to do with that, that should all be now linked to the new fields. So anything that was relating to complex state should now reference the sessions. Anything that was relating to workshop locations should be related to delivery locations. And that should all be pretty straightforward. So if you do encounter any errors, absolutely reach out to us and we can work on 100%. That with you.
But there shouldn't be anything our customers need to.
In theory, and again, there have been, as I said, it's been a slower rollout as we've slowly worked through some of these things, as they've come up and we've worked on them, especially if you are at this tail end of the project. A lot of these should be squashed at this point and shouldn't be there. But yeah, absolutely. If you encounter anything, let us know, because that should be pretty straightforward. Okay,
with the completed attendance sheet, can we now extract it directly from the workshop, not the warehouse?
I don't believe so, but I would have to check that one. So that might be one that...
we can send it out with the Q&A, maybe with the recording and that sort of stuff, and get that answer out to you there. Awesome. Will you be able to mark attendance for each session?
Yes, you are able to mark attendance for each session. So that should work exactly the same as complex states. So again, just in that same complex states, anything you could do with the complex states, we've not removed any behaviors around that as part of switching to sessions. In fact, we've added obviously a couple of things, but in theory, if you could do it for a complex state, it shouldn't be missing now as part of the session.
Awesome. All right. Are you able to allocate sessions for qualifications?
In a roundabout way, potentially. So all the same structure still works. So everything to do with a session is still linked to the primary workshop that it's attached to. So anything that's attached to that workshop, obviously that feeds back up the chain all the way up to qualifications or units of competency and that sort of thing. But you can't specifically link one session to one qualification, have a different session. All of the sessions that are in a workshop should be instances of training for that workshop.
Understood. Cool. Will this allow students to be able to book into a workshop from aXcelerate instead of going through the website? Not at this stage, I don't believe.
No. So sessions, again, are still individual dates for training, but it's still into the workshop specifically. So if the intention is that a session is still an instance of that training, and you in theory should go to all of those instances of training to be across that workshop. Whatever is part of that workshop should be across those different sessions. Still in that sort of a vein, we would think that if you were going to have people booking into different things, they'd be handling different workshops with different sections.
100%. Then is there future potential to name sessions so they appear on printable attendance sheets, as a workshop could be made of several different named sessions?
To be honest, not something we've considered. That's, I think, my first time hearing that as a suggestion. Definitely push that through and either jump in the ideas for it. Yeah, that'd be great to put that in, and then we can see if there are other use cases for that. But definitely an interesting idea in terms of why you would want that. And I'd love to hear why you'd like that instead of a workshop, having a session that has a specific name, title, type of training. Definitely an interesting idea.
Cool. So just to clarify that, for a simple one-day session, the date and time will be automatically updated
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as part of that conversion process, say you were previously booking with the simple function, all that you'll really see is, yes, you'll have access to the sessions tab still. It'll still have all the information. But previously, the simple sessions didn't have what we were calling a complex date, or now calling a session behind it, which allows us to link all that information back to it, that delivery location or workshop location, the equipment, everything like that. It was just against the workshop and it just sort of had a date. The only change now will be that there is, in theory, now this session or complex state behind it that can be a bit more linked and you can have a bit more control over. So it should still be one-to-one. We should convert all that over for you. And of course, again, jump into staging, have a look. Should all be in there for you. But let us know if that's not the case, because should absolutely be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing as well is the ability to have it kind of interact more with the assessment engine as well.
Definitely. So being able to control these things a little bit more in terms of the sessions means you can be a bit more granular with how those are applied. So we do have a new, as part of the sessions release, it's kind of already released, it's kind of in there as well. It depends what you call them, could be facilitators, could be trainers, could be however we want to refer to that in the system. There is as part of the sessions tab, you'll notice next to it, whatever you want to call that. So trainers, facilitators, etc. And that will allow you to also bulk update some of this information too, again. So we allow you at this more granular level to control the information on these sessions, but also if you want to do it in bulk, you can either do that in the sessions tab, where you can apply it to all of them. You can apply some things, you can only change certain fields. It really is one of those things where it should help in the day-to-day, making a lot of things a lot more speedy.
I agree, yes.
But again, our real complex customers, that a lot of things have to change. You have to make sure a lot of data is up to date and correct.
Yeah.
Because you'd hate to miss a single session. You'd hate to not get something updated. It's going to cause all sorts of errors and issues. But we also have just that bulk update tool as well for bulk updating trainers or assessors or other bits and pieces like that. And that can also then flow through to via that new tab, classes, etc.
Perfect. I love the ability to be able to two birds, one stone.
Absolutely. The amount of, always a goal of ours is to reduce as many clicks as possible. Because one click in a process can be 10 clicks a day, which can be 100,000 million clicks a year.
Yeah, agreed.
Maybe the numbers are a little off. You never know.
No, I probably feel about accurate. Awesome. I think that might have been all the questions that we had coming through. Two more that have just come through as we were talking.
Excellent.
Awesome. We have our public schedule for 2025 showing our existing location name. Will the location name change for these scheduled courses to the delivery location name?
Should absolutely, yeah. So as part of that location conversion from the workshop locations, what we're trying our best to do is convert over whatever's in that workshop location name field into as much information as we can for the address. So again, we'll keep saying it. Definitely a good one to just jump into staging and have a look. That will be the easiest and fastest way to know the answer. But what we're trying to do is actually convert that into a delivery location, which should then pull out all that information through. If that's not correct as part of our conversion, if you can get in touch with us before you go live, again, whether that, if you haven't already, that could be the 2nd, that could be the 9th, you should have some communications around that.
Correct.
We can help you adjust some of those delivery locations prior to launch to make sure that it's correct and the same. So if it was just a simple name field and that was the full address, then we should be pulling that through to the new delivery locations.
Awesome. So we also have one which is, will this impact the agency portal? I'm not sure if that means agent portal, for example, standalone courses to sessions.
Everything, so anything, the way it used to work with complex states, it should essentially work the same now with sessions.
Awesome.
So it shouldn't have any run-on effects to the client portal, the agent portal, anything to do with that, that it wouldn't have already had. So should all be pretty straightforward. Again, if you are encountering issues, totally let us know. We do have plenty of users who've already gone live, who are using the agent portal, who are using the client portal. Everything is straightforward so far. Got lots of people using this. Some as old as a year ago. We've had some clients using this for quite a long time. So it should be pretty straightforward. But again, another one you should be able to jump in and have a look on staging.
Cool. And have all the aXcelerate reports been updated to factor in sessions changes?
They absolutely should be. So we've got, again, lots of people using this, lots of reports updated. It's entirely possible that there could be outliers that we've missed for whatever reason. If you do happen to have a custom report or something like that that has been made, or something that's only for yourselves, or it would have to be pretty niche at this point, I would think. Because we've got a lot of people using this, using workflows.
More than half our customer base would be using this right now, wouldn't they?
We're at 80%.
There we go. There we go.
So quite a large portion of the customer base is already using it. So again, some of these have sprung out at us, where maybe it was a template field that we missed or had to update down the line. But all of the reports and all the template fields, again, they should be there ready to go. But yeah, absolutely let us know and we'll get that fixed right up, because it should just link
Perfect. Speaking of templates, we've got to speak about certificate templates. However, can we bring session dates into the certificate template? I don't believe we can.
No, not specifically. So similar to how the complex dates used to work, again, we can't quite bring them in at that level.
Yeah.
Just because it is a little bit too granular.
Yeah.
But in theory, it depends on how you're using the system and why. That's another one of those ones where if you have a really good scenario for why you'd want to bring those through, absolutely chuck on the ideas for them. Let us know the scenario.
Yeah.
I'd love to know the use case, especially if, again, you're in that simpler bracket where it is one-to-one session to workshop. You may as well just use the workshop at that point. If you are using these really complicated days, I can see why you potentially want to show that on a workshop, but I think that'll get pretty busy pretty quick. But,
yeah, no, I agree. So it'd be really great to understand, yeah,
what's the use case?
What's the use case and how we could see if we could put that into maybe something into the future if we have enough interest in that one. I think that might be all of the questions.
Excellent. Everyone's excited, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Again, a tiny little recap again. Hopefully a lot of people, we know there's a bit of a mix here today of some people who've already had it turned on and just wanted a bit more information, potentially on how they could get the most out of sessions. So hopefully, again, that's one of those things that we've got out of it, knowing a little bit more about the sessions tab, what it interacts with, how you can really adjust how those sessions appear and where that should roll out to. Some of the goals, obviously, the real high level goal for us with sessions was just to make everything more accurate. And that's been a bit of a challenge for a long time of, people need this accuracy, especially if you're running these really complex training organizations where you might be multi-state, you might be just in two, but one's got time zones, one doesn't have time. Well, they have time zone, but daylight savings.
Yes.
That's always a bit of a hard one each year. And really, the more information we have accurately stored against these sessions and these workshops, it should mean that everyone gets the right information, knows where to go, when it is, if there's any clashes, all that sort of thing. So it might seem like there's a little bit more to track in the system. It might seem like there's potentially a little bit more setup in terms of getting something going, and we can definitely help you with that. We've helped, as I say, 80% of our customer base get there so far, and a lot of people are really excited about some of the changes in terms of having things accurately put in there for the trainers, because that's a real bugbear. Obviously, poor trainers have just wanted to get on site. They wanted to get there, get their training done. They want to know where they are in the morning, where they are in the afternoon, what equipment they should bring with them. And previously, some of these scenarios were very hard to track. People were using custom fields and all sorts of things to try and pull that through to the trainer so they sort of know. But now it should be a lot more straightforward in terms of they should be able to trust the calendar a lot more. Yeah, definitely. So the benefit, I suppose, of reporting, more granular reporting, data out. So good data in is good data out. That's the secret. And that might seem like more work, but it's at its core, it's always a very, very, very true thing. Particularly for our high volume short course providers out there who do this all day, every day. So I think, it might seem like a little bit like that, but I think the longer term benefit of having accuracy, hopefully less confusion for trainers and students as well. For sure. Will be the long-term benefit of sessions, plus what you see in the future for workshops as well. Yeah, of course. Now, once we get this data ready, that means we can move on to a lot more things. And there is obviously, if you came to aXcelerate Day, there's a bit of a hint at what's coming up next, and a few bits and pieces, and we'll be releasing more on that. But as I say, once we get the data right, that means it opens a few doors to what we can do in a lot of different areas. And we really didn't want to build on a rotten foundation for a lot of those things. So making sure it's correct. And obviously, as part of this process, obviously we know it's a bit scary. Change is always a bit scary, but obviously, hopefully the benefit is there for you if you get it all set up correctly. And we're also here to obviously help you with that. 100%. So the support team are fully equipped to help everyone get up and running. If we've got questions, queries further to today, which we may do, especially once you go ruminate on this for a bit, maybe have a play around in staging. If there's anything else you obviously come up with, definitely let us know. Let us know. If there's better. Also, then again, like some of the things today, ideas on what doors this is open for you, what more could you do, how we inspired you. Yes, exactly right. And we always encourage, jump on the ideas forum, come have a chat to us. We'll be around, or any feedback that you guys give obviously comes through to myself and obviously the team. And we look at everything that comes through, so very excited about this one. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today for our sessions webinar. As we said, this was being recorded. You might be watching this back on a recording right now. So this will be sent out to you shortly. And thank you so much for joining, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.